Oh, hello and welcome once again. J76NY here. It's episode number 5 of our douchebag playthrough on Suzerain. Last episode we saw the assassination of Commie Bernard Circus that ruined my inaugural ball. We had a family dinner, which my true colors kind of came out on, at least Anton's true colors. And now we have a lot of business to attend to. We're going to start by reading the newspaper, getting some of that out of the way. Protests across Sordland. Protests erupted around Sordland after the death of Bernard Circus, many of which started peacefully but soon turned violent. Protesters with red youth flags were seen in most central cities around Sordland, carrying out violent riots and organizing protests that disrupted much vital services from being delivered to the Sordish people. Protesters held sit-ins, which were broken up by riot police with tear gas and water cannons in the regions of Bergia, Agland, and Grunai. Thousands of people poured into Public Avenue in Lockhaven and Sol Square in Holsword in response to the Young Swords attack. Similar protests around Sordland soon turned into violent riots. And this tells all about Bernard Circus. He was shot by a member of the Young Swords. That's the activist group we were part of, so we may be turning a blind eye to that. Protests in Grunai. Protests are taking place throughout the Grunai region in response to the assassination of Bernard Circus. Large rallies have been organized in the city centers of Benfey and Boren. Large congregation of Red Youth members have organized sit-ins and protests aimed at hampering public transportation in the city of Valjean. Unity despite differences. Sordland has 2 paths to the future, and this year is critical to decide which path we embark on. Amid a recession, the lack of stability and security caused by the death of Bernard Circus is an unacceptable reality. We need more jobs and a safe atmosphere if our country is supposed to grow and prosper. How will we receive our employment and open new factories if there is blood flowing down the streets? Sordland will never reach its goal as an advanced society if we descend in a downward spiral of splintering our nation. Peace and prosperity now and forever. Political chaos. Political violence has surrounded Sordland since yesterday. While officials from the police claim to have the situation under control, protests are turning into riots. Violent attacks are occurring around the country. NFP and LUS call for protests. Izaro Keebner of the National Front Party called a rally to condemn communist influence from United Cantana and called the violent protesters as traitors to Sordland. These Malianovists are roaming in our streets, conducting violent attacks and disguised as peaceful protesters. Cannot let them exploit a man's murder. On the other hand, Labor Union of Sordland has gathered to condemn nationalist violence in Sordland. Young Swords vandalize shops. A group of people with Young Swords flag have vandalized a dozen shops in the trade district of Anrika, specifically targeting the Bludish and Agno-Swordish minorities. A group of violent militants have assaulted the National Front Party headquarters in Morna. Murder was a method of the past. Radical. Unrest in Sordland. Arvory yesterday morning. Hundreds of nationalists descended on the PFJP party office in Arvory after the supportive statements of Franz Richter about Bernard Circus. The office was stoned by an aggressive group, and several civilians were wounded in the chaos. Later in the evening, another group of militants fired shots at 5 people who were inside the Communist Party's local office. Things are heating up. Government has made its decision to promote a planned economy, a decision which is based on flawed arguments of Solonomics. Economists believes in the free market economy for good reason. Now, before anyone calls us Arcasia sympathizers, we don't support the excessive form of capitalism Arcasia is spreading around the world, like in Lesbia. Our belief is that a balance can exist where the government can support the private sector with government money. Businesses could take the needed economic planning burden off the shoulder of government. disagree with a planned economy simply because you can't properly micromanage everything in a society where people need to be able to determine their own future. The only way out of recession, bailing out business. Sordland's economy has been displaying a downward trend over the past 2 years of Alfonso's presidency. We want to prevent our country from declaring bankruptcy. We need a way out of this recession, and we need it now. The economic downturn keeps hitting hard at the businesses that are struggling to stay afloat. It is clear that a helping hand from the government is required to control the situation. There is no other way apart from bailing out business to truly provide relief to the economy. This in turn should revitalize the... Yep, enough of that. Alright, let's go around and read what these reports have to say. Illegal firearms found in Communist Party office. The Rumburg Police Department raided the local Communist Party office after alleged attacks organized by one of their members and found illegal firearms. The building has been closed and 22 members of the Communist Party of Sordland. Legal KA-74s seen. Cash found with Rumburg-made weapons including 46 KA-74s, 2,854 bullets, 12 handguns, 27 grenades, and bomb-making equipment was found in the basement of an abandoned house in Suzerain. No suspects have yet been detained. Young Sword Youth Wing leader dead after terror attack. Local Young Swords Youth Wing leader in Suzerain, Jack Torine, has claimed responsibility for the organized attack in the Bludish market that resulted in the death of 7. His base of operations has been raided, and he was found dead inside with 2 bullet wounds to the back of his head. The scene was organized to make it look like a suicide. We're not able to get information about the location of other ringleaders connected to the terrorist attack. Norwell has reported that is currently too understaffed to deal with the ongoing political violence. Sounds like we need to step in and provide some backbone. Due to the small size of the police force in the city, they have been working nonstop, and a number of officers were sent to the hospital as a result of severe fatigue. Minister of the Interior, Lilius Graff, has been working with head of police, Karl Greiser, to... police overburdened. We have been receiving reports of a lack of equipment and staff from the police force in Sordland. With the escalating violence in the city, the officers have been working 12-hour shifts to suppress the protest to no avail. And we got a few more internal matters to deal with. At 11:48 a.m., an unattended bag in front of the NFP office in Vol'jin was destroyed by the police on suspicions of a bomb threat, which were then verified. On further investigation, the Communist Party leader of Vol'jin, Milt Hanu, has been arrested in connection with the incident. Commies. Local police forces reported that a wardrobe full of heavy military equipment has been seized in a Young Sword Cultural Center in Jen. Regulars of the place denied having any knowledge about the weapons. The owner of the building has been detained along with 13 others. Police captured 22 rifles and 2 machine guns. The equipment belonged to the Swordish Armed Forces, dated 1929, but kept in very good condition. Sounds like the Young Swords and the Red Youth are getting ready to go to war with each other. Report from Whole Sword. Chief of Police Karl Greiser reports that 2 Bludish women with affiliation to the Bludish Freedom Front have been caught in Whole Sword before they could execute a terror attack at a crowded rally. Both women are listed as wanted criminals and enemies of the state. The arrested women have admitted their intentions to attack the National Front Party's rally at Sol Square when Kazaro Kiebner gave his speech, but rejected any connection to the BFF. Both claims they were acting alone. Internal or external affairs. The latest diplomatic message from the leader of Wayland warned us regarding a pathway from the mountains of Bergia that allowed traitors of the state escaping to Sordland. President Viktor Smolak has demanded that the border security to be increased. He also sent his best wishes about handling the protests in Sordland. Another one. Horton criticizes trade. Leader of Agnolia has diplomatically critiqued the imbalance of trade between our countries. Concerns were raised over how much more Sordland profits from that trade in comparison to Agnolia. Prime Minister Martin Van Horten requests a fair reevaluation of existing treaties in future negotiations. All right. Let's end the security briefing. I arrived in front of the doors leading to the... Today's security briefing was arranged in parts. Today's security briefing was arranged in 2 parts, starting with internal matters and moving on to external matters after a short break. The Minister of Interior, Lily Scraff, and the Minister of Justice and Law, Nia Morgana, would join us for the first part, the law enforcement briefing. For the second part, the Minister of Defense, Joseph Lancia, would join us with a few high-ranking officials, including Chief of the Armed Forces, Vulcan. I opened the door. Lucian, Nia, and Lilius rose. Let's begin. Everyone in the room sat down except for Lucian. Put on his glasses and documents in front of him. Shortly after, he raised his head to address the attendees. Mr. President, ladies, we will kick off today's meeting, the internal security briefing. That's Lucian in the background there, if you can hear him. Currently eating a chopped up peanut butter sandwich at almost 1 year old. Very happy. Unlike this guy. I'm assuming everyone has already been over the agenda. We all have busy schedules, so without further ado, I will jump into our first topic. As we fear, the political atmosphere has worsened. The reports around the country indicate that tensions are rising as we fear. What is the status on the Bernard Circus investigation? I've received news this morning that the investigation into the murder of Bernard Circus has concluded. Please enlighten us. The more we know, the better. After further investigation and testimonies, we have confirmed the motive and also the events leading up to the shooting. A few days prior, members of the Red Youth initiated a violent attack on Young Swords, local leader in Jen. I believe the Young Swords then called for revenge, leading to the death of Mr. Circus. Since he often spoke against the Young Swords, the nationalist sentiment in the assembly, he was a big target, not to mention his radical communist views. He had it coming then. Sounds good. Red Youth are clearly to blame since they triggered it. There you go. They struck first, yes. It was obvious that there would be a retaliation. Lilius handed over a report and pointed at a highlighted section in the document. The investigation revealed a very troubling fact. Funding source of Red Youth have a clear link to United Cantana. Proof they're meddling in our affairs. Exactly. Several Red Youth members with ties to United Cantana have been detained, and the information extracted from them points to a preparation for communist uprising in Sordland. Oh, we can't have that. It isn't unusual for the superpowers to influence other nations, but I think in this case it's a little far-fetched. The left lacks popular support in Sordland. Nia eagerly lifted her head, motion for her to speak. I went over the report in detail. It would be wrong to jump to the conclusion about clear foreign interference yet. United Cantana has humanitarian and cultural ties with many countries, including Sordland. I trust Miss Graff's judgment. United Cantana is clearly trying to expand its influence. Or, I also don't want to jump to conclusions immediately. We shouldn't create a crisis. Um, this is actually kind of a hard choice to make here. You could be right. The evidence kind of points in that direction. But in deciding to go with the planned economy, I also decided to try and increase my trade relations with the United Cantana, as they are communists, so planned economy is their thing, yes. Well, we're going to go with this. We can deal with the outcome later. Mr. Rayne, we have done our due diligence and the funding. Operatives and strategy all point to a coup plot. Holy shit, so soon. Took a sip from a glass of water and continued. Our police chief, Carl Geisner, has linked the funding channel to the United Cantana consulate in Benfi. As we all know, the enemies of Sordland are many. We also have threats inside the country. As the government, we have all the power to deal with any threat. Our country always had issues, part of our job, where we need to remain vigilant. Let's put it down right now. We are the powerhouse, and you won't mess with us. If we give up essential freedoms to purchase temporary security, we deserve neither freedoms nor security, says Benjamin Franklin. This is debatable, but yes, you know what more security and surveillance cost this country under President Sol. Let's not forget that President Sol, God bless him, brought stability after a long period of bloodshed and chaos. But moving on, our highest internal threat comes from the estimated 20,000 strong Bluish Freedom Front, led by the imprisoned Ulan Arg. No picture. They're a banned political organization, now a militant force that is trying to incite racial violence. Are they supported by our Bluish citizens? Are they cooperating with any Bluish political organizations? And they make a lot of noise but have little substance. Barking dog doesn't bite. It might, though. Are they cooperating with any of the political organizations? Bluish origin? Many suspected links exist between the Bluish Freedom Front and the Workers' Party of Bludia, but we don't have any concrete proof yet. Lily's pointed to a page 3 in the report. Our intelligence intercepted 2 crates filled with weapons close to the Rumburg border. They're filled with military-grade Ka-74s. We expect that more have been smuggled in since a group of Ludes were caught with these guns at a checkpoint not far away. Rumburg has been acting aggressively in the region for a long time. I'm not surprised they would have attempted to weaponize the Bluish people against us. This is very worrying. Very worrying. Can we make any direct correlation to blame Rumburg? It was expected that Rumburg would undermine us, but this is too far. We need to keep a level head. Now, can't let anyone meddle with our internal stability. Our security services are doing the best to prevent further attempts. This is grave news, but we must be careful not to stoke the fires of anti-Bluish sentiment. What is the second most important threat? It is the gang violence that is threatening the Nargis and Ang regions. 2 prominent organized crime families are at war, and the potential for bloodshed is real. Why can't we just arrest them? The primary reason is deception and corruption. They infiltrated several government offices and the police. How they can evade us. Playing with fire. I want them gone for good. Had to take a drink of water there. Starting to get a little scratchy. Well, I agree it would make Sordland a better place. It will not be easy. These gangs exist because corruption is so common in our country. They buy our police officers and slip by checkpoints. Lilius sighed deeply. I shall be honest with you. With our current capabilities, we may not be able to prevent the further arming of separatists while maintaining order in Bergia, Nargis, and Agline. If the law enforcement budget isn't increased, we can't be fully responsible for what happens. Our police units are spread thin as it is. Do your job whatever happens. Don't come to me with excuses. In light of this information, it might increase the law enforcement budget. You'll do your job whether you get the money or not. My job is to keep you fully informed, and this is the reality. My experience and expertise in keeping our country safe from violent thugs can only go so far. I wish you would stop using the word thugs, Liz. This real problem is corruption, which is fueling the gang violence. Very likely the reason why these weapons were smuggled in. A higher budget could help us end that. Valid points, corruption is the root of all evil. Definitely not going to go with that one. Your ministry must tackle the issue with persistence, Miss Morgana. These threats seem more direct than bribe. Persistence. We are, but it needs all the attention I can get from our administration. Broads were openly scowling at each other. Well, this concludes the topic for the internal point. Thank you for the updates, Miss Graff, Miss Morgana. Move on. Have a good day. Till next time. Blah blah. 2 ministers left the room. We took a short break before continuing to part. Upon invitation, Joseph Lancia, along with 3 high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Defense, walked into the room. One of the men was none other than General Kruger, the chief of the armed forces. Dour-looking fella. Kruger! Joseph made his way towards the table while the others stood by the door. President? Let's begin. I brought General Kruger with me due to the escalations on our borders. General Kruger stepped forward and he had a strong jaw with sharp cheekbones. Tall stature, uniform, and medals, combined with deep and intense stare, made him look threatening. He was in his 70s, yet he had a bulky body that was the result of his commando training. Not only was he the second most decorated officer in Sordland, he was also the longest serving. General Kruger. President, it's an honor. Joseph tapped his foot impatiently. He seemed uneasy with the presence of another high-ranking officer. Gentlemen, thanks for coming to this significant gathering. Hey, what? Down there. Joseph and Vulcan took their seats at the table while the rest of the officers stood by the door. Oh, it's showing us Rumburg. President, the situation at the western and northern borders towards Rumburg is very tense. Observing deployments of divisions closer to our borders. Rumburg has been acting increasingly expansionist in the past decades, has also interfered in Agnolia, and now they've turned their sights on us. Here's your current strategy. Rolling close to the border with our border force is keeping Army Reserve divisions. Seems like they want to increase the pressure both externally and internally. President, if I may. Picture is becoming clearer. The latest information from the interior about the weapons caches, and now there is an active military buildup close to our border. The entire situation was analyzed by our general staff, and our prediction is a future territorial incursion by Rumburg. Let them come, we'll give them hell. I share your enthusiasm. We draw our strength from our brave sons and daughters of Sordland, but we won't be able to stand against them right now. We require an increase in the military budget to enlist more soldiers. Only then we can stand strong against our enemies. The enlarged armed forces will hold them at bay. Vulcan is right. You need an increase in the military budget. Although we don't see an eye to eye on exactly how to spend the budget, which we agree on. I have my concerns about Rumburg too, says Lucian. We need strong allies to withstand such a superior power. They are our nemesis. That's an understatement. Times are changing and war is coming, Mr. President. Whether we like it or not, we must prepare. Do not forget that during the election you promised to focus on the military. Expect that would be kept for the defense of our nation. I'm a man of my word. Of course you are, and that is why I followed. The only way we can guarantee the national survival is through more capable military force against Rumburg. Our country hasn't fallen to any invading force for 200 years. Cannot let it happen, Mr. President. We should find regional allies like Volksland or Lesbia to deter Rumburg. There are several options. Rumburg wouldn't attack any nation allied with a superpower. Sordland must stand on its own 2 feet and be able to defend itself. I'm going to go with, they wouldn't attack us if we had friends. One shudders at the sacrifices they would require us to make. Yes, but what is different between losing your independence to one or the other? Everyone fell silent when a soldier entered the room and let Lancia know that a call had come through the ministry. Excuse me, Mr. President. He left the room. Minutes later, he came back. President, there has been Rumburgian military activity close to the Narble border. I just spoke to the local commander. Vulcan, we should go to the ministry and get further updates from our branches. Understood. Raising military readiness is the first call of action. There is truly an extraordinary attempt. We will relay it to you immediately and wait for further orders, Mr. President. Go and show them the might of the Sordish armed forces. Sure they know we are observant and ready. Go and show them the might of the Sordish armed forces. We will, you be sure of that. I'll, Sordland! I'll! They saluted and left the room. Rumburg was already testing us, and the reports from our interior indicate interference inside our borders. Communist, nationalist, Bluish rebels, Rumburg expansionism was next. Sordland had always been a key piece in the chessboard of the global rivalry between Arcasia and United Campana. But in recent years, there was no such aggression from Rumburg. Not at these levels, at least. All it takes is one tiny spark to start the flames of phone rang. Rumburg had decided to close their consulate in Lockhaven. Uh-oh. Well, that's not good. Let's see what we have to deal with here. Read the newspapers here. Rumors of an infrastructure project. Anonymous sources have reported to Sordland today that several government officials have invited construction companies to meetings regarding the new major infrastructure contract. We hope that very qualified and experienced companies like Underhall Construction win the bid. Gang violence claims young girls. 15-year-old girl was shot to death in Narble as she walked her dog a few blocks from her apartment. Said the shooting occurred in an area affiliated with the gang Coronelli. Reckless act of violence, and the victim was not the target. 15-year-old was shot about 4:45 p.m., right before she was returning home. Radical. 1927, never again. I was there when General Luderian and Rickard clashed in the plains outside of Holm. The armies of Sordish people killed each other. I was there when Colonel Sol won the war after bombarding cities with Sordish civilians and such. Saw this great nation fall into bloodshed and chaos. We thought that we learned our lesson and formed a new. One man's ideas became the ideas of the state. We allowed it to be forced on it. We were a generation who lived with Turk and Sol for most of their lives. However, this generation is different. Our kids have not experienced civil war or martial law. This generation is times. cannot allow the same conditions to. Cannot forget when General Luderin declared martial law in 1927, and his tanks rolled and murderers took. We have all seen this scenario play out before. Large corporate businesses time and time again receive money from government under the disguise of helping the economy. What about the people? Underhall Construction, once again, number one. Underhall Construction was once again picked as the #1 construction company of the year by the reputable statistics Sordland. Oh, good for them. Rumburg closes consulate. So the international stage is lighting up here. Around midnight, Red Youth protesters clashed with Young Swords at Besord City Center, resulting in many injuries. Counter-protesters were cornered in front of the United Katana Embassy after they pushed back by the police. The embassy opened its doors and Red Youth members escaped inside. Police are still waiting outside the building for the return of Red Youth members. That's about it across the country here. Nationwide revolt. Diplomatic pressure. Let's read the report from Wholesword. Arcasia develops its first ICBM. Intelligence reports that Arcasia has successfully completed the Missile 4, an intercontinental ballistic missile which has the estimated capability to accurately destroy targets at thousands of kilometers. Arcasian missile capabilities have significantly increased, posing a threat to territories that are further away from Western Maricopa. Okay. Let's make the political situation around the country has escalated. Chief Strategist Lucian Glad has prepared several action plans that we can execute. What will we do to address the intensifying political climate? Call for restraint on national television, visited affected towns in person, label all protesters as traitors, expand the police by deploying all recruits in training. We're going to expand the police. President Rayne deploys more police. Ooh, our economy went down one. Now it's red. Not good. President Anton Rayne announced to have sped up the deployment of the police forces and boosted recruitment upon the protests and riots that popped up around the country, which was triggered by the death of Urkus. Additional 3,000 officers who were under training but are now deployed. Okay, let's see what the Radical has to say about that. Rayne adds fuel to the fire. Government is increasing the number of active police forces in the cities in light of the current events that span the entire Sordland. Earlier today, President Rayne announced a boost to the recruitment drive and an immediate deployment of trainees from the Swordlish police academies, deciding to use force to quell the protests instead of listening to reason. This was, of course, an expected reaction from a USP president who not only had insecurities about Sordland, but also of his party and his own wisdom. Or if it's going to give me the option to put these people out of business. Arrest all radicals. Government might have forgotten about us, but we still have our ideas of peaceful community and life live ahead of us. And today at Maroon Palace. Here we go. It was late in the evening. Maroon Palace was finally getting somewhat quiet when I returned to my office at the top. I eagerly approached my chair and sprawled out on it. It had been an exhausting day, just like every day since I took off. Pour some whiskey. Felt like the best salve after a long day of work. I glanced downward out the window and saw Serge and the guards waiting for me by the main gate. I heard a couple of knocks on my door. My secretary, Livia Suno, entered. President, Mr. Tusk is here to see you. Oh, dear. You had a meeting with the Lothburg spokesman. I'm so sorry for not giving you proper notice. Do your job properly next time. Do you expect me to keep track of everything myself? I was just about to leave. Maybe we can postpone the meeting. We'll put him off. But he's already here, Mr. President. What do you want me to tell him? After a moment, Mr. Tusk swaggered into the room. I'd met Sordland's most prominent businessman once or twice, but never alone. He had large jowls, blindingly shiny shoes, and the air of someone who was used to getting his way. Anything to drink, Mr. Tusk? Water or whiskey? Cognac, preferably from before you were born, sweetheart. Kinda like this guy. I'll check the supply rooms. Olivia backed out of the office, shooting me an apologetic look as she did so. Walter hung up his hat, which I could see was lined with mink. He fixed me with a long, hard stare, then broke into a toothy grin. Good evening, Mr. President. I'm here to congratulate you. We both sat down. My business partners and I wish you a successful term as the leader of our nation. Get to the point, Mr. Tusk. Why are you really here? I see that you're not very welcoming, President. Just a dick. I merely congratulated you. I see no reason to necessitate rudeness. I'm a dick. I'm rude. That's in my nature. I don't believe I'm being rude. Time is money, after all. Walter took a conspicuous look at the diamond-encrusted watch on his wrist. Yes, that's true, but at the same time, patience and humility are important virtues for a man in your position. You are the president, after all. May I continue? I'd like to build a profitable relationship between us. That being said, there are some concerns of mine and the people I represent, which I would like to take this opportunity to clear up. I'm listening. The ruined state of the economy in Sordland has influenced everybody. The recession hit us all hard. Walter pulled out a box of cigars from his jacket. I had these brought from Lesbia, the best cigars in the whole continent. Would you like to try one? Or why not? I grabbed one out of the pack and we smoked cigars. Now we're talking. A man who knows pleasure in business. I heard that you purchased stock from Armadine Industries in Arcasia. Smart buy. They're developing new gadgets that are going to be profitable. That's a very good return on the investment. You have a keen eye for business. I will buy a couple of thousand of shares too to expand my portfolio. Hope the investment pays off for both of us, Mr. President. The assassination and the troubles between the left and the right are worrying, but the recession is the root cause of all these issues. For us, it is worrying to see that you have decided to promote a planned economy. I don't mind that we disagree on the economy. Basically, I don't care what you think. Neither do I, but you know how much capital Lothburg represents. Even though you pursue this path, we need further market investment to boost our economy. He leaned forward. The high-speed rail investment was a great decision. The business logistics will improve and boost the economy once finished. The intention of the administration is to boost the economy. Our goal was to focus on the needs of the business. Greater Horsford and Gelsford regions needed better links. I want to discuss this. Not concerning you. That's a fair point, but why distance yourself from potential friends here? We can be close allies. The group can help you get Sordland out of the recession, which will be a key problem to solve in your term and could even determine your re-election. Let's start with a gesture of goodwill. Soon the investment project contract will be awarded to one of the three main contenders. He pulled a check out of his pocket and slid it to me on the table. Oh boy, here we go. My personal bank details were listed on it with a deposit of 500,000 Sordish Ren ready to be transferred. This was 6 months of a president's salary. If the contract is somehow awarded to Underhall Construction, they would not only work hard and deliver, but also do it on time. What do you think, Mr. Rayne? Would that be good? Put his index finger on the check. There was a noise by the door. Olivia Suno was standing there holding a tray with a bottle and 2 glasses. I'm so sorry, Mr. Tusk, but all I could find is a 1942 Savigny. Hope that's acceptable. You quickly put the tray on my desk and walked out. Tusk eyed her as she left. Remind me to visit your office more often. Now, where were we? Do we have a deal? We could try and get more money out of him. Looking forward to our... So, this is take bribe. These are not. I'm not going to get too greedy just yet, but I will take the bribe. You'll have to wait long, Mr. President. As a gesture of our faith and newfound partnership, I will invite you to a special meeting in the future. He grinned and let out a laugh. The check was right between his hands. Pulled his hands back and I took the check. The deal will also show the group that the administration hasn't left the private sector behind. Doesn't mean because I take your money, I'm going to side with you. Our goal is to unite every stakeholder to improve the economy. The administration will maintain a good relationship with the group. Very happy we came to an agreement today. Thanks for your money. We'll be keeping in touch. Walter stood up, grabbed his jacket, and shook my hand before making his way towards the door. He smiled before closing the door and leaving. I gathered my things and prepared to finally head home. As I walked out, I noticed Livia still there, covering up her typewriter for the evening. I may be so bold, Mr. President. Did you accept his offer? Don't speak of it again. You didn't see anything. Of course, sorry to intrude. He and I took a moment to look out over the lights of the city before heading to the elevators. Here we go. Another day's work as president of Sordland out of the way. We have a lot to kick off the next episode with here. We've got this economic relief plan. Meet with Marcel Caranti. He's the media guy. Finalization of the L1 highway contract. But we're going to do all that in the next episode. Anyway, if you like this one, hit the like button. If you have any tips or advice, leave those in the comment section below. If you'd like to follow along through the douchebag playthrough on Suzerain, hit the subscribe and come along with us. And we'll see you for the next episode, where we either are bought and paid for or not. J76NY saying thank you very much for watching and have yourself a very good day.